All right, looks like we're live. Thank you so much for joining me for yet another Moonshire Monday. Sorry for being another few minutes late. I have a chaotic setup right now where all my stuff is like where the camera is, and getting set up is a little bit challenging, but we got a new setup, a few things different today. Oh, the other thing I wanted to change is I want to start recording the entire audio from the stream with Audacity. Because that way, if I ever want to make content from the stream, then I'm able to like separate the audio track. Although right now it's capturing the desktop audio. Let's see how this works. A donation from Allfather. Hello and welcome to McMoonshires. How may I take your order, please? Well, my typical order is a McDouble and small fry with large Coke, but thank you so much for the donation. That will definitely cover the bill. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Such an awesome start, and I definitely got some people in chat already before I start recording the stream. What I was going to show is that I want to record the voiceover on a different track in Audacity, so I think I can go in here and say Scarlet Solo, and then record it. Nope, that did not work. I can go to recording device. It's probably microphone, actually. Okay, how about that? It's pretty hot, but I think I can tone that down too. How about this? Okay. So the whole point of me doing this, it's probably going to be a little bit awkward sounding, but the whole point of me recording it on Audacity is that if I ever want to take anything that I'm saying and turn it into content, I'll have the means of doing that. Okay, but I'm here. I'm looking at chat. Thank you so much for being here. I see a lot of people already here. Thank you so much for joining. I see Rain, Saba. We saw Allfather earlier, and Ori Earth, Rain. I already said that. Min, Tuan. There's a bit of a. Dude, no way. Dude, the browser crashed again. That's insane. So last stream, man, I can't believe how many technical difficulties there are already. The last stream, I had a problem with the browser crashing, and I was using Microsoft Edge at the time, and everyone was like flaming me saying like, oh, you're using Edge, no wonder it crashed. Well, here I am today. I'm using Chrome. I'm using Microsoft Chrome, and it crashed in the exact same way. And I even said on stream, I don't think that it's going to make a difference because they're both Chromium-based models. I can't imagine there being a difference. My mic is peaking. Sorry, thank you for letting me know. The mic placement is, you know, a little bit variable, but yeah, all that considered, I'm ready to get started. I don't need to be focusing on those little silly things that happened with the crash. But let me go back through and see all this stuff again. Allfather, thank you so much for the donation. I really do appreciate that. Wolf's here, Ebuos, Dukinja, and Harish, and Echo, and Sapphire, Ori. Let's see, Perblob, and Nuss. Oh, Nick and Sophie. How that's cute. Future 34. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate that. And now that we've gotten started, I can go ahead and share what I was working on this past the past week, McMoonshire. I mean, I'm shameless about it. So what Allfather's talking about is that after Moonshire Monday, I have a tendency to head on over to McDonald's and get myself some lunch. So that's probably what I'm going to do today. The mic is maxing out a little bit too much. If it's still doing that, hopefully it's getting better. Yeah, I apologize for that. I'm checking the levels in Audacity or in OBS, and it looks like it's not peaking, but if it is, let me know. Still peaking bad? Oh man. I wonder if it has something to do with this. I wonder if this is changing things. That'd be really crazy if having an Audacity track recording would change the quality. Rather than me recording Audacity today, I'm going to do some tests to check and see if recording Audacity while streaming has any sort of like performance problem. No, it wasn't. I mean, I'm doing my best. I'll watch back the VOD too to see how that behaved, but I don't want to take any risks. I'm not going to have the audio recording today. I'll just let it be. Your ears are hurting? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I wonder what I can do. Is everyone else experiencing the same problem with the mic? Did I move to a new place? No, it's the same place. It's pretty loud. Yeah, it peaks a little. What about now? Oh, it is peaking. Oh my gosh. Yeah, when I started Audacity, it screwed up the settings. See, and that's why I'm glad that I tested things out. Echo, thank you so much for the donation. Sorry, I'm trying to fix the mic. Give me one moment while I try and fix that. Okay, did that change? Did that change anything? It's quiet now. Oh my gosh, Allfather! Thank you again! Amazing! Thank you so much for another donation. Fronting the res for Echo got a match. That's insane. That's so kind of you. I really do appreciate all the support, especially considering that the mic is fixed. Much better. Okay, thank you so much for letting me know about that. And thank you for the donations from Echo and from Allfather. Quieter but no peaks. That's all I care about here. I can try and adjust this a little bit better so that it's stick mic's fixed. Awesome. See, I'm glad that I tested out the Audacity thing with a bit of an audience to help me through that. Thank you, appreciate that. I'm trying to get my camera right too because I bumped it. Okay, we'll call that good. What do I think about Arctic Monkeys? I loved Arctic Monkeys when I was in college, and actually my sister discovered Arctic Monkeys before they were popular, and then they became popular, and it's like, well, now they're popular, I gotta move on to something different. But I do like Arctic Monkeys. I like those, especially in like 2018 or 2019. The songs they released around then I liked a lot. Okay, thank you again for being patient with the mic, and thank you for helping me through that experiment, because I know that's kind of an annoying thing to deal with when the audio quality gets really bad. It still seems like it's quiet. I wonder if I can make it a little bit louder. I think the gain knob is very sensitive on my computer. Okay, I think that's about as good as it's gonna get, but let me know if there's any problems with the mic again. Man, I bumped the freaking camera again. Okay, sorry for the slow start. I was a little bit out of whack there because I screwed up the mic really bad. Okay, we're back. By the way, the little music thing above my head, I love it. I think it's an awesome addition to the stream. And Tame Impala or Gorillas, I like both of them. Released before GTA 6. I think I will. So GTA 6 got delayed to 2026. I think that I can get it out before then. At the very least, I can get it out, or get the demo out before then. Hi, it's my first time watching your live stream. Awesome, thank you, No Name. Slow start, Regigigas. Yeah, that was my Regigigas moment right there, where I kind of got screwed up. Yeah, I didn't realize that could happen. So for anyone who doesn't realize what happened is I started up Audacity, and then I started recording the audio, and when I started recording, it actually filtered the audio through Audacity and then into OBS, and it was applying some kind of like compression to it or something. It sounded really, really bad. Isn't this Moonshire, or is it a new project? No, this is Moonshire. When will I release the game? Well, so the thing is, I keep saying release the demo. So there's a demo on Steam right now, but it's old. It's been quite a while since I posted any sort of update for it, and I want to post the most recent version because all of this stuff that you see here is like way different, at least from a coding perspective. I think that's going to be really nice once this finally gets out. Have I seen the NPC you're working on yet? No, I haven't seen that yet. I must not have seen it on Discord yesterday. It's completely fine now. Good. I'm glad. I will be cautious about doing that in the future. I love NPC conversations. Yeah, right now mine are a little bit whack because I have been changing a lot of stuff around, so I don't think that I'll be able to talk to characters at the moment. Is the demo going to be free? Yeah. So the demo that's on Steam right now is free, and it's going to be free until... Well, so the demo's always going to be free. But when the full game comes out, I think that the full game is going to cost money. You know Google Doodle Championship Island game? No, I'm not familiar with that. The campfire looks both nice and like it's missing something that I don't know what. Yeah, you know what? I'm kind of with you. I think the big thing is a glow around the bottom. I think that it would be cool if there was like a glow. I think a lot of campfires have that. Or in some way, like the shadows need to move because it is kind of like odd looking. It's missing wood. Yeah, I guess it is missing wood. That would kind of add something too. You're right. What I was wanting to show today is I've been getting a lot of questions recently about the scaling in my game. How in my game you can scale the game window to be any size and the game proportions kind of react to it in a good way and things don't look weird. In fact, you could stretch the game down to be a tiny window and like, look, I can still play the game just fine. It works perfect. So it's a really cool feature, and it was kind of complicated to get set up, but what I worked on recently is trying to make it so I had an open source version that I could share with people, and I did get that done and posted. So let me go ahead and pull that up and share some of the details on that. Exact same grass. I mean, so some of the grass, at least like the textures on the ground, the little lines, I think those are kind of based off of, what is it? ARM 1998s. But if it's my grass image, like these flowing grasses, that's mine. So I guess if they took the sprites, it's not. I mean, it's just grass. It's not that big of a deal. Okay, so on GitHub, you can find this new repo called Sunscreen. It's Chalcade Sunscreen, and what this is it is all of the code for scaling the game in a very like simple way, and I can show you like what the demo looks like, because in the Sunscreen folder there's the sunscreen.lua file, and this is the file that you would just like copy into your project and use. But also in this project I have a main.lua that kind of like shows how it works in action. So it's kind of like a combination where if you download this project or clone it, then you'd be able to actually run this as a Love2D project and get more of an idea of how scaling the screen looks. How it works, at least. You need to do a tutorial about that. Yeah, I would say in general, it's a little bit complex how it works, but using it I don't think is very complex. I think this example right here under Quick Start is pretty good about showing what it's all about. Where you initialize the screen with what your desired like dimensions would be, and then it scales that appropriately. So like if you were using a pixel art game and the pixel art screen was only like 100 pixels by 60 pixels, it's a really zoomed in camera, then you could just set this to game width 100 and then 60, and it would be a really small screen but scaled up into the window. And again, I'm going to go ahead and try and load that up and show what that looks like, because I can go to File, Open Recent, Sunscreen. So if you run this example project that comes with Sunscreen, it looks like this. So it's a little small, but I can make it big. And it's scaling with the game window. So as I'm changing the window, it's changing the dimensions. And you can see this exact same process in Moonshire. The game stays centered like this, but as you change the dimensions, it fits the screen. And I also have these different fill types. So there's the fit, where it fits the dimensions into the window. There's fill, where it's going to fill all the content to completely like zoom into the space, even if it doesn't match. Okay, and then we also have stretch, which means that all the content is gonna physically stretch itself in order to fit into the space. I think that this is going to be a very, very useful project for some people to get started and have adaptable screens, because I love when games let you scale the window like this. I think it's useful for streamers too, because a lot of streamers need flexible windows to like work with their monitor setup maybe. Does it work with a tall aspect ratio? Yep, it does. So if I do this, it's going to fit the window horizontally. Now your question might be, well, what if it's a mobile game? And if it's a mobile game, you can account for that. You can say the width is actually, let's say, 400 and the height is 1000. So that's the game window. So now when I start the game, wait. I must have overrode it somewhere. Oh, that's just the window. Where does, oh, here it is. It's set, Jesus, that's dumb. That's really dumb. It's set in 2 places at once. I should change that. In fact, I'm going to change it to this. Ah, I don't have access to T. I'm going to set it to W and H. And I think I'm going to actually commit this change so that people can use that. Also, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Text is small. Okay, so what I was going to show is, does it work with a vertical, like, mobile game ratio? And the answer is, what is happening? Do I have to manually set it? 400, 1000. Okay, there it goes. I guess that's somewhere in here must be overriding the configuration. But this is what it looks like, is that if I turn the game window into like the size of a mobile, like a cell phone, it fits the screen perfectly. And then this is why this is important, because some cell phones are oriented with different like ratios. So a cell phone might look like this, but other cell phones might look more like this, where it's a bit more rectangular and less narrow. So cell phones come in lots of different sizes, and it's important that a mobile game is able to adapt its content perfectly, no matter what the size, or even if it's a tablet. Like a tablet might be this size, or this ratio, but the game content can still be the exact same. Where did I get my music? I made my own music for the game. It's clutching the resizing on every Lua game. I mean, I'm here for it. I want that to be. How can you start making your own game? I'd say download an engine and just try it out. Even if you don't know coding, you can still do game development without coding. Like, try out Game Maker. I think that's a good thing to start with, or Scratch, and then you can move on to something like, you know, Godot or Unity. Just try out all of them. They're all free. How do I save settings in Moonshire? I think it happens automatically. If you change a setting and you close the game and start it back up again, it should have those settings saved. If it doesn't, then that sounds like a bug. Hopefully that answers your question. If there's still problems, you should post in the Discord and we can help you with that. How do I make sound effects for my game? Any tips? That's a good question. So normally when I'm working on sound effects for Moonshire, which I'm going to switch back to Moonshire, by the way. When I'm working on Moonshire sound effects, oh, come on. I normally start with some sort of paid asset as the baseline. because I could go out and like record stuff in real world or like generate things with a synth, but I have a collection of like thousands of sound effects, and normally I just like scour them for good starting points and then I edit them in Audacity. I'm not going to open Audacity again because I'm worried that it's going to screw up my mic once more. How do I do my world editing? That's a good question again. So I do my world editing in Tiled. So I have this program called, sorry for the whiteout. Hopefully I didn't blind anyone. But all the world editing happens in this file here, this software called Tiled. And yeah, just like every tile is manually placed down and you create the world that way. It's pretty time consuming, but it's worth it. Flashbang, yeah, sorry about that. I'll leave that open so I don't have to flashbang people again. I'm a dark mode enjoyer when it comes to development. But yeah, I hope that people can get some value out of that GitHub project. And the thing is, I've been trying to like utilize it myself in other projects. So this past week, I have been taking another look at Necrozone, which is my mobile game. I can show that too. Even though this is Moonshire Monday, I'm going to show the Necrozone project that I'm working on. So Necrozone is a mobile game. So we were talking about mobile games just a second ago. Adele, hi, welcome. I found a bug with the torch in the Discord server. Cool, thank you. What do I usually edit in Audacity? That's a good question. Sorry, I keep saying that that's a good question and then not actually showing really anything. I keep jumping kind of around. But in Audacity, whenever you have an audio file, I know I said I wasn't going to open it, but I'm just not going to record anything. When you have an audio file, you can go to Effects at the top. Sorry, it's kind of like off screen. You can go to Effects up here. And then I normally just change settings in this menu here. Things like the amplification and the volume, making sure nothing's peaking. You can fade things out, fade things in. You can change the actual pitch. That's a really big one, is that if you start with a baseline sound effect, like a punch sound, like, you can change the pitch down to, and then like warble it and change the EQ. You can change the different filters, the high pass, low pass. You can add some reverb, and when you apply all these different filters and changes, it becomes like a very different sound by the end of the whole process, and it sounds really unique. And also, it helps with a pixel art game because, you know, a pixel art game is kind of like retro sounding and almost kind of like gritty. So when you apply a bunch of sound effects to a sound or to an audio file, it can kind of get gritty. Like when you change the tempo of a sound, it like stretches out the sound. It loses a little bit of quality, and I kind of like that almost. Do I have a different program to build the map, or then you use the map in my current? Well, yeah. So since making a game with a framework like Love2D it's very lightweight. All of this Love2D code, it literally is just a code library. All that Love2D does is provide a bunch of code libraries that I can call. It does not provide like a sprite editor. It doesn't provide a level editor. It doesn't provide a sound editor. It doesn't provide anything. You have to create all the assets on your own, and you can use these tools to help code things, to help render things, to help with making the game work. But at the end of the day, you're on your own with making all the assets. And you compare that to a game engine like Game Maker. Game Maker has a built-in sprite editor that's really easy and convenient to work with, has a built-in level, or I think they're called room editors, that makes it convenient to like place your objects in and move between rooms. It's just like an all-in-one encapsulation that makes it really convenient to work with. So yeah, it is different programs for like the level editor, but that's just the way it goes. I would say that's a flaw of working with a framework, is that I have to do things like this where like all of the grass objects are just placed as points, because it can't actually render what that plant looks like because it's not attached to the engine. It's just a separate program. I'm starting to play around with Love2D, and so far I have made a Vampire Survivors like basic game. Awesome, that's a really good starting point. Working on upgrades right now. The most difficult thing is to structure the project. Yeah, that is a really big challenge, and the only way to get better at that is just to make a bunch of projects and then learn over time kind of what works and what doesn't. And I've been practicing that too with this recent Necrozone redo that I've been working on, and it's actually called like Necrozone redo. You can see it at the in the upper left. It literally is me trying to rewrite Necrozone from the ground up. Because if you didn't know, Necrozone is my mobile game. It looks like... I'll go ahead and start it. This is what the rework looks like right now. And it's buggy because it's still in development. But this mobile game was on Google Play and the App Store, but it got taken down because of policy changes. So I'm just reworking it again. I'm taking this opportunity to do a rewrite. Because it's actually based off of very, very old Love2D code that I wrote, I think 10 years ago. I was in college. So that would have been 10 years ago, is when I wrote the original code for, it was called Tropical Spirit, and then I rebranded it as Necrozone. And now here I am trying to rewrite it again from the ground up, because that code was really bad. It was one of my first projects with Love2D, so the code just wasn't very good, and now I'm taking the time to go back through and just rebuild it from the ground up. How do I sort my game files? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. Is someone was asking about game project organization, and first and foremost, make sure that you have all of your fonts in its own folder, all of your sounds, all of your sprites, everything by category. I keep all of my code in a source src folder. You can call this folder whatever you want. You can call it code or Lua. It doesn't matter what you call this source folder. But as long as you have all of the stuff categorized by, what it is. That's the first step. But you're going to have a lot of sprites, and you're going to have a lot of sounds and stuff, and you can just do subcategories. That's all kind of obvious. We all organize files on our desktop and stuff. That's not what we're really talking about. Hydrate, thank you. The big question is, how do you organize the code so that it can still communicate with each other and it's organized in a meaningful way? And that all takes place here. This core folder is actually not a thing. Now, the way I'm organizing this Necrozone rework is, and the reason I'm choosing this game is because this is a much smaller project compared to Moonshire. Moonshire has like a dozen extra folders in here and a dozen. It's just so busy. This is a nice thing to kind of start with. I'm also doing a lore-heavy pixel adventure game, but with OpenGL. That sounds really cool. What software do I use to make the sprites? I use something called Sprite. But before I get off track, I'm going to talk about the code real quick. And this is also a similar concept where I have all of these Lua files here on the left. You can see them all stacked up on the left here. And they are also categorized by, like, function, by what they're used for. I have all the code that's used for the menu in a folder called menu. I have all of the files used for the gameplay, which is different from the menu, in another folder. Effects are its own folder too, because effects can take place across the gameplay and the menu, so they need to be on their own thing. And the whole point is that now these files here only really communicate with each other, and that's a big catch with coding, is that if you have 50 files and all 50 of those files can communicate with all 50 other files, it becomes a big mess. And that's why trimming it down into categories with like these effects, the game, like all these game files, they only interact with each other. So if there's a bug somewhere in like the node.lua file, I can be pretty confident that if there's a bug here, it's going to take place somewhere within any of these files that's causing the bug. Because even if there's a bug in Node, it might not be caused by the code here. It might be caused in like levels or, in game. Because there's some Node-related stuff in this file, and any file that interacts with Node could potentially introduce the bug. And that's why having it like isolated between different sections is important. But to add to that too, in this folder called game, I have a Lua file called game. So this is like the main master control program for this game category. And you can see here that this is the file that actually loads in all these requires for the source.game, the game folder. And it's the same with menu, where I have this menu.lua, and it looks like it's not doing the same thing. I should probably fix that, where it's doing the same thing. It looks like it's calling one of them. Maybe screens calls the other one? I need to remember how I have this organized. Yeah, I would say that I'm actually doing this a little bit inconsistently, where I would prefer to have menu require all the other ones, so then there's no need for multiple require statements in multiple different places. Can we make AR project in Godot? Totally. Godot is able to make anything. Do you wish you had your game tester? I do have a game tester. Wolf helps me test games all the time. I think it's amazing. Yeah, is it possible that a sprite saves as PNG or as .png at the end of the name? Yes. In fact, all of my art assets for every game that I work on is a PNG. If I go into my Moonshire folder, into my sprites folder, it's very small because I can't zoom in on Windows. I'm so dumb. But like the browser crashed again. The browser crashed again. Am I still streaming? This is crazy. We are here. Okay, good. Wow, that's wild. The browser crashed twice so far, and I'm using Chrome, by the way, so like no one can like blame me this time. I think the only option is to use a non-Chromium browser, but even that I'm not convinced, because like YouTube is owned by Google. Why would YouTube be crashing on a Chromium browser and not a non-Chromium browser? Like that doesn't make sense to me. I could try Firefox, I guess. I just don't think that it's a browser related problem. Do I do anything for mixing sound effects, or do I work better together? Sorry, or so they work better together? Yes. Every sound effect that I work on, I do put into Audacity and mix the levels, and I add reverb, I change the pitch. I make sure that it kind of matches my style, because like for example, I have sound effects for real world objects. I'm going to add a balloon popping sound effect to this game, but you know, a real hyper-realistic balloon popping sound from real life might not sound right in a pixel art game. So it might be better to, you know, adjust it so that it feels almost a little bit crummier, so that a little bit more artificial, so that it matches. Firefox or LibreFox is much better. It's possible. It just depends on what the root cause for the crashes is, because it only happens while I'm streaming. And if it's only while I'm streaming, I'm just shocked that Chromium browsers would crash, but Firefox wouldn't. That would be very weird. Didn't Google pay Mozilla to be competition, not necessarily worse? If that's true, that's crazy. I never heard that before. Another thing that I was wondering, how do I, as text and widgets, I have a bitmap for basic text right now, but I don't have any GUIs really. Yeah, GUI is really tough, because if your game engine doesn't have something built in, you kind of have to be a little bit unique with it. And that's what I did with Moonshire, and that's what I did with this new like Necrozone rework that I'm working on. And I can show that. So like in this little game, this mobile game I'm working on, it's very simple buttons, very simple text display, but even this is a little bit complicated, because what I did was I have sprites in the project. I'll go ahead and open that up. It takes me 1 second. It's under Necrozone Redo, and under sprites, and under buttons. I have these button sprites for the different buttons that are in the game, and it takes the dimensions of these sprites and calculates if the mouse is over top of them, and then the click event just changes the menu scene. Again, this still needs to be cleaned up. There's a lot of stuff. Oh, by the way, Necrozone is going to have file slots now, so you can play the game multiple different times. I think that's going to be nice. I think there's a Love 3D. It's called Lover. It's pretty good. Am I using OBS? Yes, I'm using OBS. So can a sprite save as PNG or as .png at the end of the name automatically? So it sounds like you're new to image editing, and the answer is yes. When you work with a sprite or any image editor, including MS Paint, including Photoshop, including GIMP, it's always possible to save the image as whatever file type you want. So for example, I have this pixel art skull right here, and in a sprite it's saved as skull.png. A PNG means that it has transparency, like these corners here are transparent. But a sprite has a lot of functionality included in it, where you can include layers down here. So you can go to new layer, and then I can draw like an extra layer on top of this guy, and I can like give him angry eyebrows. That doesn't look good. But that's the point of the extra layer, is that now I can just like hide it. I can hide that extra layer because it's not connected to the actual image. I'm not overriding anything. But PNGs don't store layers. So if I wanted to store this layer data or extra frames, like if I wanted to animate this, this is what I'll do. I'm gonna animate the eyebrows going up and down. So if I make this frame, and I'll do one of these. And then when I play the animation, he's like, oh. Actually, I think it might be funnier if it's just one eyebrow going up and down. No, actually, it's funnier with both. It's funnier with both. Okay, so I have two frames and I have 2 layers. PNGs cannot store layer data, and it can't store frame data. A PNG is just an image. So if you wanted to save like this A-Sprite project and continue on with these different layers, you would have to save this file as a .asprite file. But if you want just the single image, which is what the game engine wants, the game engine just wants a single image. The game engine doesn't want frames, it doesn't want layers, it just wants an image. But the layers are useful during editing, and the frames are useful to create sprite sheets. But that's how image editing works, is that there's different file types for different uses, and they all can export to PNG, I am certain. If there's an image editor that can't export to PNG, I would question what its actual purpose is, because that doesn't sound right. You should use 9patch for menu GUI. Is 9patch some kind of Love2D GUI? Because if so, I would try it out. But I kind of like making my own. It's pretty nice because when you build your own GUI, it's really ingrained in the gameplay. So it feels a lot more natural to me. But, you know, I'm sure that if I implemented it correctly. You have LibreSprite? Yeah, LibreSprite is just as good. LibreSprite is just like its own build of a sprite as far as I know. But yeah, the whole idea behind this is that it's just a big rectangle that you can click on, and when you click on it, it triggers some event. That's really all that the UI is. It has a hover sprite too. A sprite is so cheap too. Yeah, that's why I like telling people to buy it if you can, because it gets the automatic updates. And they do good work in making sure that the program's good. I really like A-Sprite. I think it's a great program, and I use it every single day. Love the stream, new sub. Awesome, thank you so much. Have I thought about creating multiplayer or local co-op? Yes. In fact, I think I have... Well, let me go back to file, recent project. Where is that? Open recent. I have... See, how did I do it? Steam. So I have all this Steam stuff. There's a lot of Steam functionality, but part of it is these. These are connecting 2 clients together, and I implemented this, and it works. I have it set up so that a Moonshire client, if you're Steam friends with someone else who's playing Moonshire, you can send them an invite, and it'll connect your clients together. So that functionality is in place. Now the problem is there's a lot more to it than just like connecting the clients together. Now that there's a network connection, I need to program the game to actually support having multiple players, and then have it so that the clients know what the other client is doing. I keep saying client, by the way. Client just means the game window. When I play the game, this window is the game client. Meanwhile, the game server is like if there was an online, like if you were playing World of Warcraft, the server is some computer in Blizzard's office or their cloud service. So the client is just like the user window. And when you're connecting two clients, that means you're connecting two user windows together so that they can communicate. And the whole idea is that if two clients are communicating, that means that like my friend's client could send mine and tell me, oh, there's a player object right here. And then my client can render their player right here too. And that would be my first step in making this work, is that when they're connected, I would just tell them to tell the other client where you are in the world, and then it would show a little character right here. And then as the characters move around, the two clients can tell each other that there's movement, they're changing positions, they're changing maps, and you could move around the map together and you would see each other. That would be a really awesome first step. And really, I love how they do that in Elden Ring and probably in Dark Souls as well, but where they have like the ghost apparitions of other players. I think it would be fun if like you're wandering around the world and you're just playing the game and you see other people doing the same content. They're just ghosts. You can't actually interact with them, just like Elden Ring, but you see them. It would make the world feel really alive. I think that'd be fun. Or I could do the leave a message on the ground thing. Or I think that Mario Wonder does the standees, where you just like leave crap around and people find them. Is love that mouse press can be used by touchscreen? Yes. When a phone screen, when you touch the phone screen, it's considered a mouse press. There's no difference. There might be some difference because you can put in like pressure. You can read the pressure of the touch. So actually there is some extra functionality of a touch compared to a mouse click. How do I make the water move up like that? It's tiles. So that's an awesome thing to talk about. Every sprite or every moving water piece that you see here is an individual animated tile, and it took a long time to get that working. So let me see if I can find it. I think it's under tiles and then water. So let me open this up in Sprite. So the way the water works is you can see in the sprite sheet that there are eight different water pieces here. And each of these individual pieces has its own 16 by 16 tile. So this is one, 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 you know, and so on. So like, check out this middle tile. This middle tile gets animated by taking this frame, this frame, this frame, this frame, this frame, and so on until you reach all the way the end, the 8th frame. And it cycles through those 8 frames, and that's how you see like the middle sections of the water. And these corners is the same way. The corner is just this tile right here, animated using this frame, then this frame, then this frame, and so on. This can be configured in tiled so that it automatically like figures out which, you know, one to use. So as you're like painting in the edges of these water sections in tiled, it's able to use the correct animation sheet, and it works like that. It's really, really nice and easy. Did I design the tile set? No, this tile set, I think I paid for it. I paid for some asset pack that came with the edges and came with the water, and then I edited it. So it definitely had more detail, and the wave colors were more striking. I'm pretty sure I reduced some of the detail along the edges as well. And I made it blend with my grass, because the grass and the edges are different. So it's a mixture of a lot of different packs. But no, I did not make this asset myself, the tile sheet. How do I do Y-based draw order in Moonshire? I can show that real quick. I have this file that I made called Sprite Manager. And the Sprite Manager, by the way, for people who aren't sure what I'm talking about, what this person is asking is that, like, check out this tree right here. When the player stands in front of the tree, like, look, the player's head is covering the tree trunk. But when I walk behind the tree, now the tree is covering the player. So the position of these objects is relevant to which one gets drawn first, because if the tree gets drawn and then the player is on top. But if the player gets drawn and then the tree is on top. That's called Y-sort, Y-based ordering, or Y-based drawing. And I implemented that in this file called Sprite Manager. What this does is every single frame, it goes through every object that needs to be drawn, and it figures out its position, and it figures out which order to draw things in. So you can see here, it's iterating through every single tree that's currently loaded in the game. And for each one, it's going to insert the, like, draw data into this sprites table. The sprites table here is keeping track of which sprites to draw. And there's different layers too, like under and floor and top. But most of it happens in sm.sprites, sprite-manager.sprites. And again, it's just going through all the props, all the platforms, all the spikes, chests. It's adding all of their sprite data, their draw data, to this sprites table. And then it's a lot. It's a lot of data. There's a lot of objects that it needs to check. It does this every single frame. If you're running the game at 60 frames per second, it's going through all of this stuff 60 times every second. So it's a lot. And then finally, once it does all of that, it finally draws. And to draw, it's going to iterate through all of its sprites. It's going to calculate its Y position, and it's going to sort. It's going to sort those draw commands in order based on what their Y position is. And that's why when the player is below the tree gets drawn first, but when the player is behind the tree gets drawn first. Same with the sunflower. When the player stands in front of the sunflower, the player covers up the sunflower. When I walk behind, it's the opposite. And you can actually, like, see it happen in real time. When you, like, walk through, yeah, look at that. You can see when the player pops through based on the Y sort. It's very cut and dry. Let me make sure I'm zoomed in. Oh yeah, that looks a lot better for stream when I'm zoomed in like this. I should have been zoomed in this whole time. I'm sorry about that. Object-oriented programming, my thing might not be updating well. I mean, it just depends. I love you, man. Thank you. I appreciate that, Wazoo. I saw you draw every type of button/menu background while using 9-patch. You just need one file that you used for multiple. I understand. But when you rely on other people's code, there is some sort of forfeit to customization, to making it integrated in your game, and it does complicate things. For example, if I was using this UI system that you're suggesting, would I be able to animate it, organize it, use the exact same format, this grid format, the animations that I use? I think that I would run into some customization problems that would require custom code anyway. And that's kind of why I like writing my own UI, because I mean, I'm able to customize it to my exact same specifications, my exact needs for the game. And I don't know, something about that feels really empowering, and it accomplishes everything I need it to. You can animate as you like. I'm sure you can, and I trust you that the software you're using is good. I'm not going to argue. I believe you. I bet that there's some UI software out there that's genuinely really good and, like, perfect. But at the same time, I like using my own. That's all. I just like using my own. It feels right, and I'm pretty good at it. Last time I showed Lookout app with an entire menu. Did I post that version? Oh, no. So that was a different app that I'm working on, which I can show that too. Open recent. Stage play. So that was this program here that, and I am going to open source this at some point. That was this program that I'm going to be using to use as, like, a stream startup menu, so I can change the scene to, like, the cloud scene. This is the scene that I use for, like, my thanks for watching screen, but I want to integrate it to be more interactive. Because here I can like put in a timer, and I can change the font to something better like that. I think that there's text as well. Yeah, be right back. Like if I had to go to the bathroom, I could just like put this menu up, and people would know that I'll be back in 3 minutes. I think that this is kind of useful, but I have not posted this yet. But it is using Lookout. If we look at this code, I put lookout.lua directly into my stage code, and I bet that it's just requiring Lookout as you would in any other project. But yeah, that's a good point though, because for this program to make that UI that I just showed, where it was like this UI here, I had to custom make this. And I could have used some open source UI program to make things easier instead of writing my own, because instead I had to make this file that's 168 lines long and just to implement this functionality. And sure, it's really easy. Really what I should do is I should take this code and open source it, and then it's like a standalone simple UI that I can import to other projects. Why was the frame rate fluctuating that much while nothing was really happening? I think that happens when I run the game through VS Code while I'm streaming. That's when I notice it the most. Would I have the FPS capped at 60? It doesn't matter. It's not capped. Long story short is the frame rate is not capped. The only cap is what your monitor is able to output. So in my case, the monitor that I'm using now, my ultra wide, it's 60 FPS. So I can't run my game on this monitor higher than 60 frames per second. But if I was running the game on my Steam Deck, for example, that runs at 90 frames per second, the screen. That's the hertz, by the way, if you're ever wondering. Like if you're out buying a TV, that will be the hertz. A 60 hertz TV runs at 60 frames per second. So you can run your games at 60 frames per second on that TV. But if you wanted to run games at 120 frames per second, you'd need a TV that runs at 120 hertz, which is the refresh rate. I'm sorry for stuttering a little bit. Allfather, thank you so much for the donation. What's my favorite NPC? Let's go back to Moonshire and talk about that, because there's a lot of NPCs that I've been working on, and all of them are kind of just like incomplete is the problem. I really want to make Moonshire feel more cohesive and done, but it's just a lot of incomplete ideas. So if I warp to town, I have a few NPCs here, and I had a soldier here, but I must have removed him. So I have this old man, and I don't think that they talk right now. Yeah, it just crashes the game. It crashes the game when I talk to them right now. Oh my gosh, the game is such a mess. I really need to wrap all this stuff up, because I've been basically changing everything, and since everything's changed, it's like everything's incomplete now. I need to wrap everything up. I do love this guy, but by the way, the NPCs, most of the human characters were all made by Ellie's sprites. Her sprites are so good, and she makes very cute characters. She excels at making characters that are cute and nice looking. I love this old man. He is so cute. He's a very cute character. I love him. She also made this blacksmith, and actually there's an alternate version of the blacksmith that I'm on the fence about using. I'll go ahead and show that as well, because where would this be? Here it is. The reason I decided to get rid of it is because I think that I'm going to be changing how the anvils work. But I love this sprite as well. She did a really good job with this animation, where he has an anvil in front of him. He's actively working on something, and he has like this hammer swing animation. I had it implemented earlier, but I decided to just get rid of it because instead I want the anvil to be its own interactable object, where you can interact with the anvil to change your weapon. Again, it's not complete. It's kind of jank right now, but I think that gets the idea. Again, thank you for the donation. I appreciate that. Appreciate that, Allfather. Cotstream, thank you, Nazcat. I'm glad you could be here. Every time I export my games, exe file does not find the libraries. Have I ever had this problem? Yeah, that's a good question. What you're wondering about is that when you download Love, like the Love project from the website, it's going to give you... I'm trying to find where I have all this stuff. this is my build folder for Moonshire, and I'm going to open up my magnifier so you guys can actually see, because it's tiny. It makes me so mad that Windows Explorer is so little when I want to make things bigger. Come on. I'm trying to start the magnifier. There we go. Okay. So this is all the way, this goes all the way back to the Legend of Lua days. But when you download Love2D, it gives you a folder that looks like this, where you have the love.exe. This is the main file that you're interested in. This is the main file that you're interested in. But you can see that there's all of these other files next to it. There's the love.dll, Lua51, Lua Steam. Well, I mean, Lua Steam doesn't come with it. This is something that I added myself. But there's a few extra DLLs that come with the Love package that you download from the website. And you need to have all of these DLLs in the exact same folder that your exe is in. You can't just take this exe out of the folder and give it to someone. It doesn't work like that. You need to create your exe and then distribute this entire folder with the DLLs, because when this exe runs, it's going to look for these DLLs next to it. And if those DLLs are not there, the game will not run correctly. That's why all of my Steam builds, this is every Steam build that I've ever made for Moonshire. Actually, it's Steam and itch.io. But all of these builds are basically the same, where they all have the Moonshire exe right here, and then all of the DLLs that are required are surrounded. And whenever I upload the build to Steam and people download that new update, it's grabbing all of this stuff. So that's what I think that you were having trouble with, is that it just wasn't including the DLLs. EXE as father, DLL as child. Yep, that's a really good way of putting it. I'm going with Phaser JS. Yeah, I used Phaser before. It's pretty good. Pokemon music while you're shining hunting? Awesome, nice. What are you hunting? I'm curious. 9patch isn't a lib, it's like Y sorting, a method of drawing stuff. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I must have gotten it confused with something else that someone else was talking about. Someone was talking about UI libraries earlier, and I must have gotten confused or mixed those up. I meant the next version of the demo. Yeah, that's fine. I'm with you. The next version of the demo, I really want that to come out as soon as possible. Dialga and Brilliant Diamonds currently at 1900. Dang! Dang, that's intense. But good luck to you. I hope that goes well. I did shiny hunting when I was in college, and I shiny hunted... No, it was while I was a senior in high school, and I shiny hunted through the Masuda method, a shiny Chandelure, and I still have it. I love it so much. That's one of my favorite shinies. I have to say, I've used agentic coding. When you say agentic coding, I assume you're talking about AI generated stuff. And I'm with you that it is scary how good it is. I don't really like talking about it on stream, because when people are learning coding, I really don't think that they should be using agentic or AI supported coding, because AI solves the problems for you and it writes the code for you, and that removes the learning process. But it's undeniable that it's useful and good. It's undeniable that like the way that agents and like Copilot chat, it's amazing. It's amazing how good it is. But it's going to kill people's like productivity in terms of getting better at coding. Allfather, thank you again. What's a character concept that's interesting that you've never been able to put out there? Ooh, that's a cool idea. Really, that's a funny question, because I have a bunch of character concepts that I'm planning to put in the game. They're just not in it yet. I think the Mammoth is a really good example of that. And I wonder if I have Tony's fairy, because I paid Tony for this really good fairy that he made, but I don't know if I would be able to find it. Oh, I do. I do have it. Look at this. Check out this character that Tony made. Yeah, that's awesome. That is so cool. I love this animation, and I love this sprite. He did an amazing job with this character. So it's like a mushroom fairy, but she's death themed. Yeah, fairy, exactly. It's meant to be like an anti-fairy. But I love this character concept, and that's not what I was expecting. That's the whole idea, is that I kind of want the game to mislead you into thinking that this fairy is going to be some like cute, cool, like feminine, cool, or like nice fairy, but it's not. It's like this like death freaky. It's still feminine. It's still like a girl. But I like we worked a lot on making this character like really nice, but I haven't implemented it yet. In fact, I don't even think I'm going to be able to put it into the demo until the full game. But I love this character concept a lot, and I'd say that's my answer, is that this is a character concept that I've been really wanting to put out there. It's just not ready. The game isn't ready for this character yet. I need to actually have a proper lead up to it and introduce it properly. And that's kind of like the main thing here is in order for a character to really land with an audience, is you need good context for it too. You can't just have a cool looking character and like players will love it. There has to be some kind of like introduction, some lead up, some purpose. I can't just like put that into the game and then people be like, oh, that's my new favorite character. There's a bit more to it. That's something I've been challenged with too. Having same thought process for the character direction. Yeah, cool. I like this general idea where when you introduce a character, you describe the character like let's say that you are in a game and you meet your first character and they're like, we're gonna go meet this wise old man. We're gonna meet this wise old man. And in your mind, you're picturing a wise old man that kind of just looks like the wise old man from this game, where he's just like an old guy. I'll go over here to this one. Yeah, so when you say wise old man, you might think something like this. But then when you play through the game and you finally get to the wise old man, it's revealed that the wise old man is actually like a giant lizard. He's just a big lizard man. And it's kind of like, it's a defiance of expectations. The player in their mind pictured what the wise old man would look like, because this is what a typical wise old man looks like. But then when you get there and you actually meet the character, you're just like, wait, that's not what I was picturing. But you didn't, like, the game didn't mislead you. You called it a wise old man. It's just their definition of wise old man is different than yours. And so it leads to kind of like a weird, funny moment. And I wanted that to be the same thing with the mammoth. So on stream, I remember showing that mammoth sprite that we were working on, the mob mammoth. Yeah, so this mammoth. I think that what I want to do with this mammoth is introduce him in a similar way, where someone asks you to go save their friend or their family member. Like maybe there can be a little girl that you meet in town, and she's like, my friend is trapped. I need you to go save him. And then you go there, and it's like, I was picturing a human in my mind, but then you get there, and it's like, oh, her friend was actually a big elephant. It's a defiance and expectation, and I think that's kind of funny. Even though it's not really that big of a deal, it's not really anything noteworthy. It's just like a character trait that I think is fun. Is people have preconceptions in their mind about certain things, and when you break that expectation, it leads to kind of like a funny moment. And that's what I'm trying to do. It's mostly chained on mainstream languages and engines. Yeah, it's impressive how LLMs are able to kind of pick up on basically anything you throw at it. You can say any language or any like tech stack and it'll be able to figure it out. Even through context, it's able to figure things out. It's really nice. Also, I think that my browser crashed again. It definitely did. I'm not seeing the recent chats. But it's funny because like the chat box above me, that is showing the recent chats. It's just that my browser where I read chat is broken. Why Sunscreen isn't working for me, the background isn't resizing. So there's the few make sure you're following all the steps from the like GitHub README, because if the game is not rendered properly through the screen or the sunscreen, or if it's just not, you know, what is it, configured properly, yeah, you're not going to see things rendered correctly if there's some issues with it. So first thing that I would try is clone the project or download the whole project and just run the main.lua that's included. See if you can get lookout or Sunscreen to work on its own. And then from there, try copying it into your project and making it work there. Father, thank you again for the donation for the character I put in #art. Oh yeah, in the channel, the art channel on Discord. They're nice, but end up on a darker path that changes the method, or that changes the mood. You can pull up the picture on stream. I mean, I don't think I want to pull it up right now, because what I always worry about, well, actually, no, I can. The reason why I'm always hesitant to do things like that on the fly with streams is because I always worry that someone's going to post something like grotesque or weird. But I think that if I pull it up off stream and then put it on stream, it'll be just fine. Dang, that's so good. This is an amazing illustration. You know, the vibe reminds me of Baldur's Gate. It reminds me of that character from Baldur's Gate who has like the similar colored hair, and he's also an elf. I love the style. Very, very awesome illustration. Super, super good. I'm impressed. Zelda plus Baldur's Gate. Yeah, it kind of has a Zelda vibe to it too. The game sound completely broke for me. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I wish that I could help with debugging specific things. It helps when you post details in the Discord, because it's the same with the person asking about Sunscreen. I can help debug issues with Sunscreen, but it's hard for me to know what's wrong when it's just like someone says, you know, Sunscreen's broken, I don't know what to do. If you post your code, I should be able to help. Or post it in the coding channel or on Discord somewhere. Fitting theme? Oh yeah. Pokemon music slaps. Any strong thoughts on using a shader for complete overlay on top of the game? So for me, I only use shaders for... Okay, long story short, yes. I use shaders for an overlay, and I think that it's actually visible in the game right now. So if I go to a darker area, let's spawn a torch. Okay, so you can see the overlay actually a little bit. So the light source. Look how the color, and it's like a darker color around the telescope because there's no light source. But when I come over near it, it gets lighter. And that's because there is a literal overlay, a darkness overlay. All of this like dark shaded area is literally an overlay, and then these light sources are piercing that overlay. It's using a shader to pierce the overlay. So to answer your question, yes, I do use shaders to do an overlay, but the HUD that you see up here on the upper left, that's not a shader. I only use shaders when I really need to, and like piercing a overlay layer for light source effects, that's definitely a requirement, I'd say. 100 watching? Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to see that. How's the game coming along? It's coming along, but it's coming along slowly. What I've been doing recently, actually, what I've been doing for the past year, basically, is taking all of the existing functions and code and just making it really solid and good. Because if I make the code really good and solid, then making content from here on out is going to be so much smoother, and that's what I mainly want. Is I'm in this for the long haul. I want this game to be good, and I want to support it for a long time. That means the code needs to be good. And I was thinking the same thing with Necrozone. That's why I was rewriting Necrozone, because the code for it it was just not good. It was just so bad. And doing a redo is going to be really, really nice, even though right now it's in a bit of an iffy place. But for anyone who's familiar with Necrozone, it's not going to be too much different. In fact, most of the stuff looks basically the same so far. But I have a few extra features that might make things a little bit better. One is that you can change the color of the little flame effect. And I added some extra like particles to it too. It's hard to tell, but it does look better. The flame effect does. I still have a lot of work to do on like the timer and the presentation. There's so many things that need to be adjusted to make this better. Also, I think I'm gonna reach out to a specific pixel artist to help me with the like the platform and these little nodes. I thought the demo was coming out in January. Yeah. Yeah, about that. I know. I'm sorry that I kept mistiming the release of the demo. It's been rough. Just game dev is hard. Yeah, I don't like making that excuse though, because really I need some accountability. If I say something's going to come out and it doesn't come out, I can't just say, well, game dev's hard. That's me being a poor planner. That's me not estimating things properly. So I've been trying to do a better job of that recently, and I think I have. I think that when I say that something's going to come out, I try to keep that, but you know, that's not even true. I've been making mistakes with that still. Like I had that I had a YouTube video that me and an editor finished working on, and I ended up just not posting it because I didn't like it. I just wasn't satisfied, so I decided not to post the video. So I'm learning that making false promises is worse than making no promises. Pixel width, yeah, I would say that's a flaw with the current design, is that the pixel width changes between different sprites. But also, when you allow that, you get really cool. You get cool effects. I added milliseconds and minutes now. Yeah, I did. So yeah, when you actually complete a level, it stores the time down to the thousandth of a second. I guess it's milliseconds. I don't speak in milliseconds. I wondered, like, do people that use the metric system say milliseconds? Because I feel like in my day-to-day, I never use the word milliseconds. In fact, saying thousandth of a second makes more sense to me. That's why Silkstalking devs don't say anything. Yeah, I'm starting to understand their strategy a lot more now. I use MS of talking about timeouts or intervals. Yeah, I would say that in that sense I do as well. I'll say millisecond. I'd say, like, actually, you know, in sports, I think, like, my younger sister ran track, and I think that they would time everything in terms of milliseconds. The stream froze. I'm sorry about that. I hope that it gets unfrozen. I think that it's been doing a pretty decent job of having uptime on the stream, because you might remember that some of the earlier streams had a lot of problems with just going completely down, and like my internet just not supporting it. But I fixed it recently. I'm physically connected to my router. I'm physically closer to my router, and I have a physical a new Ethernet port, because that was the problem. Is my computer's Ethernet port was broken. It was just not working right. Stream's fine. Good to hear that. Yeah, stream is fine, but man, my text monitor is so bad because it's just the YouTube built-in one. It is really rough. How does the game state work in this game? Yeah, let's talk about that real quick. So when the game starts, and actually this went through a few different iterations. I think I have a game state value. But oh yeah, this is like old stuff. I don't really use a global game state anymore. The main menu is considered a different game state from the regular game, but that's basically it, because I don't use pre-dungeon and I don't use game over anymore. So really, it's a check. Are we at the main menu? Then do game state 0. And if we're not the main menu, we do game state 1. And that's basically it. And that's the determination, probably somewhere. Maybe game state. Maybe this happens in update. Yeah, so there's a check in here where if the game is not currently in that gameplay state, then the player stops all of its logic. It doesn't bother with anything else. So I do things like that. It's a very, very simple game state system. I would say it's more typical for me to do a system like this, where the player has lots of different individual states. But even that, like, this is super messy too. Like, look, there's all these removed ones, and the numbers are so arbitrary. It's confusing. I need to clean this up big time. And when I go to implement multiplayer, I am going to have to completely rewrite this file anyway. Also, I'm just realizing that I have both versions of this song on the playlist. I think that I have the original on this playlist as well. Because I think with this song, I prefer the original from Emerald. Maybe for his stage, but from my end, I'm creating tools to edit tile sets dynamically and save them in a way that's compatible for my game. Saved a ton of minimal manual JSON file editing. I mean, I'm with you. Like having tools in place or automation is huge because there's just so many challenges and things that slow you down. Anything that can be automated is huge. Allfather, again, another donation. Thank you so much. How much do you think it would cost to get a demo of a character walks around a flat plane? Because I'm trying to figure out how much this might cost me and how slow it might be if I'm not a developer. I would encourage you to try to be a developer. I think that it would be in your best interest to try to find some way to incorporate your art into your games, because like that illustration that you showed on stream is amazing. It looks so good. And I think if you leaned into that style and leaned into what you're really good at, you could make a game that really, really works. Now, you described a game where you walk around a plane. That sounds like a 3D project or a complicated project where you need lots of complicated sprites, and it might not even be sprites that suit your style. I think that you should lean into your artistic talents and make a game or project that highlights your art in a way that's like best. If you're good at illustrations, like character art, like you showed on stream, you could make some kind of like point and click adventure or what do you call it? Visual novel, some kind of like first person character driven, you know, like in Persona, there's lots of scenes where it's just like the character artwork and they're chatting and you make decisions, and that's a ton of fun. I think that you should try to get into some kind of setup that really leans into your strengths, rather than trying to pay a developer to create a game for you. I think that's gonna not work out well because it takes so much time and energy to make and produce a game. I think there's a lot of potential with what you're describing. The style is 3D. The game closest to the style I want is Easy Delivery, CO on Steam. I can check that out. And I think it just depends on what art style you're going to go for. When I saw your character artwork, it's like, ooh, man, this person's a very, very good illustrator. I want them to pursue games, and maybe there's some kind of room for illustration in there. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're going for, where you're like, I am more of an artist. Maybe I can team up with a developer. I don't think I would try to go on the paying a developer side, because when I hear that, that is a very expensive process, and I would either do two things. One is go for a game that fits your skill level with coding. Either use a game maker game where you have drag and drop, coding logic, or Unreal Engine has the blueprints. There's lots of ways that you could code your artwork to do things and create a complete game without like really getting into the nitty gritty of development. But even still, I think that you could do that. The other option is, rather than paying a developer to make the game for you, like commissioning them, you could team up with them. You could find a partner. You could say, I'm going to be the artist, you're going to be the developer. We're going to go win on this together. We're going to team up and we're going to make something awesome. And if you did that, I bet it would turn out amazing. I think that it would be very hard to manage a game project when you yourself are not the coder and you are paying someone else per hour to do the coding. Because what's going to happen is you're going to pay them, like, let's say a few $100s to make a prototype, and then you'll pay them a few $1,000s to turn it into something more functional. And then as you're testing, you're going to find bugs, and it's going to be a nightmare, endless cycle of development and payment. Now, if you wanted to turn this into more like a business where you had like employees, that's sort of the same sort of thing, though, is if you're teaming up with a developer where you're the artist, they're the developer, you could set it up where you're the employer, they're the employee, or you are commissioning on a per hour basis. That's what I do with mine, is that like I have an artist that does illustrations for me, and same with my editor. I basically commission them and work side by side in that way. Can you explain player.fakeanim? Fake anim. I don't know. I don't remember what this is. I think this is just... I have no idea what this is. Let's see if we can find it. Fake anim. I don't know. I think fake anim, it must be like some kind of placeholder thing for each individual piece of the animation. Because if folks don't know, the way that the players animated is I split every piece up into different parts. So like I see red, full. So this is what the player looks like when it's all compiled together, but really each piece is its own piece. So like the head is separate from the body, separate from the arm, separate from the belly, separate from the feet. So these are all different pieces. And I think that the fake anim, I don't know why I called it that, but I think that the fake anim is just used as like a holding place for each individual piece, so that then when I'm drawing them all together, it's able to like, I don't know, put them together in some weird way. I would definitely rename it if I were to go back in time, because that's kind of confusing. I use the word fake in this game project in a few different ways. Specifically, the trees have a fake property. I might not even be able to find it because there's so much fake stuff. Look, all of these maps have so many fake things. And what fake normally means in the context of my game is fake. If a tree is considered fake, then I do not give it any collision. That's what fake means in the context of Moonshire. So that's why in my game project, if I check out, let's say, this tree right here is in bounds, so it's not fake. But this, where's another tree? Here we go. This tree right here is out of bounds. There's like this wall here. None of the trees that are out of bounds should have any physics to them. So that's why this tree here, I gave it the fake property. And now when I go to that spot in game, if I warp over to entrance and I show collisions, we'll see that all of the trees that are out of bounds actually have no physics. Actually, this one does. Look at these poles. These poles have a little bit of physics attached to the bottom of them, and I really should remove that. I should make it so that there's no physics on anything that's out of bounds. But that's why this tree... Whoop! Ah, dang it. That tree has physics, but the other ones out of bounds don't. But I just crashed the game. I crashed the game because I rolled into a tree. Ugh. So annoying. Did I write that code years ago? Yeah, I don't even remember writing it. I wrote it at least a year ago when I switched the player over to using the layered structure. So I probably wrote it a year ago. How did I make the little stars show the selection in my menu? I used an open source library for that. So I have this library called Show. No, not Show. Draft. Here it is. So there's a Lua or a Love 2D library called Draft. And all that Draft is it lets you draw really specific shapes. Like an isosceles triangle. Love 2D doesn't have a built-in isosceles triangle function. So Draft adds that as an option. Triangle right. Rectangle is built in, same with Polygon. But you got some weird ones like bow and pie and ellipse. And also star. Star. Here it is. So Draft adds a star shape, and you can tell it what angle to be at. So that's how I draw those stars. Is they are literally drawn using math. And where is that? So when you see these stars, it's using Draft to draw a star at that position, and it's just rotating it constantly. Every single crash screen looks the same. Yeah, they do. It's hard. It's always kind of hard to tell what crashed something because you have to read it specifically. Does Love2D support multi-threading for WebSocket? I don't actually know. I have no idea. I'm sorry. I don't know the answer to that. That sounds like a networking question, or well, multi-threading sounds like a fundamental question. I bet that it does support multi-threading. You might need a library for that. But in terms of WebSockets or networking, I'm not super familiar with that. I'm still new to it. Afternoon Childcade, thank you, Rescue Squad. Did I learn every property first and then start making the game? No. I started making the game and learned by making games. That's why I always tell people to start making games by making Pong. Start by making Pong. Make that your very first game. Because it's easy. It's not easy, actually. Making any game is going to be hard when you don't know what you're doing. I always say start with Pong because even though Pong is an easy game, hashtag Pong mentioned, yep. Even though it's an easy game, it is still hard to make when you don't know what you're doing. You have to learn so many things about game development in order to make Pong. And take a shot, everyone. Yeah, exactly. The thing about Pong is, like, think about all the stuff that goes into making a Pong game. You have to learn how to render a game window, how to draw sprites to the screen, how to read keyboard input from the player, how to move things in real time that is frame rate consistent. You have to learn about collisions because there's a Pong ball. You have to learn about angles and movement based on angles because the ball is going to move based on an angle of the collision with the paddle. You have to learn about keeping score with variables. You have to learn about saving data and reloading it if you want it to be like consistent between game sessions. You have to learn about rendering UI and having buttons and text on screen. What else is there? There's so many enemy AI. Yeah, if you're playing against an enemy Pong paddle, it has to move around. There is so much stuff that goes into making a Pong game. That's why I really encourage everyone to start with it, because if you try to jump into making Moonshire or Zelda or Mario, that's way too complicated. I'm so sorry to tell you, you need to start with something simpler. It's the same as if you were learning how to paint. Hashtag paint mentioned. Is you would start with painting an apple on a canvas. How many apples do you need to paint before you can make something good? It takes a lot of bad paintings before you can make something nice. It is really, really tough. It's a long process. If you think you can make a Zelda game within the next year, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Maybe within the next year you can make a Pong game and a Space Invaders clone and, you know, a simple point and click something or other, a UI based game, a visual novel is pretty attainable. There's lots of things that you could do in a year, but something complex that like, look at all the stuff that goes into this game, all of these different files and folders and libraries and Lua files and sprites and sounds and music. Like, I'm on year 4 or 5 of making this game, and it's not even in a playable state right now. It is a nightmare. I really don't want people to do that as their first game, because then that means they're just going to quit. They're going to start making their first game, never get to the end, and then they're going to quit. And I want people to actually succeed in their goals. I want people to be game developers if they want to be. But if you quit, you're not going to be a game developer. So the only way to become a game developer is if you do it all the time and you never quit. Burning out by making too difficult games, that's happens to literally everyone. I think that's like the most common reason people quit, is because they get overwhelmed. They get tired and impatient of working on simple games when it's define what playable means. I mean, yeah, my game is playable. It's just that if you tried to play it end to end, you would crash it in multiple places. That's the problem. I think you can make it. Just depends on your work ethic and your ability to dedicate yourself. Most people just don't have the free time available to even come close. I'm going to challenge that even still, in that there is a finite amount of information and skill that you can progress in a year. Compare it to, you know, learning piano. I suppose you could like make it a competition between two people who never played piano before. Who can learn how to play piano the best in the next year? And if they both really dedicated themselves full time, and it was like a life or death situation, they could both become phenomenal piano players. But there is still a cap. And I think it's the same with game development. Sure, the more time and effort you put into this, like if you make it competitive with your friend, like maybe you and your friend are both starting from 0, and you're like making a competition, who can be the best game developer in 1 year? I still think the best way of doing that is to make Pong. Make Pong for a month, and then try to make a slightly more complicated game over the next 11 months. Can't cut at the same time. And even if you know all these systems like rendering, physics, networking, saving, and loading, then it will still take a lot of time and dedication to make a good game. That's exactly right. It's that it's knowledge, but it's also execution. You can know how to do all of these things individually, but bringing it all together and executing it properly that's the hard part. It's the same with artists, I'm sure, or musicians. It's definitely the same with musicians, where like you're practicing a song on guitar, and like you have this really cool lick that you're practicing, and you can play the lick in isolation, like doo 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 doo, like the song that's playing right now. But then when you try to like play it along with the song, or the tempo's different, then suddenly you're starting to screw it up. It's like it takes a lot of practice doing that same lick over and over again, before you can play it at the right tempo, the right speed, without making any problems. And even once you can play it properly, there's probably extra flavor or like technique you can add to the playing to make it sound better and good. So as long as you never stop, that's the main thing. If it takes a year, that's good. If it takes 10 years, that's fine. I'm on year like 20 of making games. That's fine too. It's okay. But yeah, keep in mind, I've been making games for nearly 20 years. Since I was in 4th grade is when my dad bought me that book. I've been making games this whole time. I never really stopped. I still have not sold any games for money. I have made $0 from selling games for money. I've made money from YouTube, from donations, from the Udemy courses, and I really, really appreciate all that support. That's been vital for me getting by. But selling games for money, which is what I think a lot of people's goal is, that's a goal that's really, really hard to attain, because when you sell something for money, you are entering into the competition of the marketplace. The Steam storefront is a competitive marketplace. People don't have infinite money to spend on games. They have a finite amount of money. And if you're charging $20 for a game, people are going to think, should I buy this game for $20 or should I buy this other game for $20? You're competing with all the $20 games. And that's the challenge here, is that when you're competing with all the other $20 games or $10 games or $5 games, you have to have a very, very good product in order to stand out from everyone else. Because if people are gonna give you money, they're only gonna give you money if it's really worth their money. Look like I'm still in my mid-20s. I mean, I am. I'm 29. Late 20s, I guess it is. I had a near-death experience that totally changed my ability to focus on my priorities. Wow, that's scary. I mean, I'm with you that living in the moment is very important, and trying not to waste your time on not important things is also important. But at the same time, working through problems and working through challenges is a part of life, and it's a good balance between enjoying the moment, enjoying things, and also getting things done, because you don't want to reach the end of your life and realize, oh, I could have done so much more. You don't want, like, people at the end of their lives, they tend to regret the things that they didn't do more than the things that they did do. So I agree with you that sitting in the sun, relaxing, and enjoying your life is an important aspect of it, because you're going to regret not doing that as well. But if you want to be like a developer or a musician or whatever your goals are, you need to do like a balance there. Allfather, thank you for the donation again. I think this week I'll try to get my game document done, though I won't be putting what engine and stuff like that because I want suggestions. That's fine to plan things out. I think it's a good idea to plan things out on paper, but I've talked about my opinions on documents and game dev documents, is that like I keep notes. I have notebooks, and I have my OneNote docs. I have everything organized. I have all of my ideas on paper, and I have plans. But I do not have a game design document. I don't have something organized, and I don't have something that I share with people, because the ideas change as you develop. When you go into this game, you're going to go into it with an idea of what you want it to be, But I'm very confident that as you get a month, 2 months, a year into it, you'll realize, oh, actually, I have some new ideas, some new directions, some, like, maybe these ideas in the game design document that I wrote a year ago aren't as solid as I thought they were. Or maybe I have these new ideas, these new concepts that fit into the game better than what I originally thought. That's kind of what my warning with game design documents is that I don't want anyone to like fall into the trap of really getting stuck in the planning stage and really trying to like solidify their plans. Because speaking from experience with this game, I have made so many plans for Moonshire or Legend of Lua or any of these previous ones. It's gone through so many iterations to get to this point where like I kind of have an idea of where things are going. If I wrote a game design document a year ago and tried to stick to it, it would have been a disaster. I wouldn't have been able to stick to it because it's been so different. You could argue, though, that if I did make a document and then I stuck to it, maybe the game would be farther along by now. But also, I would worry that I would be missing out on implementing creative new ideas because I would feel so inclined to stick to the game design document. It's always a balance, of course. So for the game idea has stayed the same for the past 6 months. That's a very good sign. And it's the same with mine, is that like my game mechanics have kind of been changing a little bit, like with the anvil and if you can pick items up and stuff. And it's been pretty solid for the last 6 months too. And I'm with you. Well, that's a very good like place to be, where if it feels like things are good and you can keep it that way, I'm with you. At the same time though, if the game isn't implemented yet, I would say you kind of need to play it first. It's good to go into it with a plan and with a document, and especially if you're collaborating with people, a document is important. But I would still be open to the idea of like seeing how the game plays and seeing what's good, because if you try to force mechanics into a game that doesn't, like, it's not fitting right, it's hard to predict what fits right and what doesn't until you play it. My whole point is use the document as a guiding force for development between you and your collaborators, but always be open to change course, to like adjust things to be a little bit more adaptable to new ideas and new concepts, because I'm certain that you and your developers will come up with new ideas that will challenge the current plan. And that happened to me, where it's like I originally planned my game to not have any weapons at all. And then I implemented a system where you could pick up rocks and throw the rocks. And I'm like, that's kind of cool that you can pick up rocks and throw rocks, but like rocks aren't very cool. It would be cool if you could pick up like a sword and then use the sword. And so I implemented it from there. I had no plan from the start to implement pick-upable weapons, but I kind of just like fell into that. And now it's like a key core mechanic, and I love it. Same with shattering. Is that shattering was a mechanic that was integrated into like the picking up and dropping items, but now I've kind of adapted it to be more of a side after effect. Like I'm not really sure what direction I want to take shattering right now. For me, I realize I don't really have a concrete goal in mind. I think that it's good to develop things with a lot of flexibility. Bub, hi, welcome in. It's been a while since I've seen you. I'm happy to see you. Kyle, what screen to game does on Sunscreen? Yeah, so when a game scales to get bigger or smaller. So check this out. Let's say I was over here. I'm trying to find a good position to explain this. It's what that function is. It's a conversion function, because when you click on a screen, there's two coordinate systems. Like this position here in the upper left corner of my game window, that's position 0, 0 of the window. But in the game world, that's actually a different position, because like if I walk over here, that like this point here, this is not 0, 0. Like this is a different point in the game level. I could even go over to this level and see what point that is. Like this point right here, that's position 22, 210. So even though I have it positioned right here at 0, 0 of the game window, in the game world, that's actually position 32, 210. And that's the point of that function that you pointed out, is that it's a conversion function to move between the two versions, the two coordinate systems. Oh, what happened? I crashed the game again. I think it's because I screwed up the enemy's navigation code. Because the way enemies navigate is they like look at the tile states, and I can show that real quick. Because I haven't showed that since a few weeks ago, I think. Tile states. So the way the enemies navigate the world is there's all these dots on the ground. And if there's any sort of... if the enemy can't see where the player is, it needs to use like these pink dots. And yeah, there's a problem when the enemy can't see the player directly. It looks like there's some kind of... yeah, viable pursuit tile. I changed that code. Ugh. Yeah, the code's in a bit of an in-between state right now, where things are not working quite as properly as they should. Lua is a scripting language, not a programming language, I think. Yeah, the distinction between a programming language and a scripting language is pretty minor. In general, yeah, you're right, is that people tend to think of programming languages as like a compiled full source baseline language, like C++ is a good example of a programming language, is a programming language that a lot of code bases are based off of. And then Lua scripting is like a supplemental piece. World of Warcraft is a really good example of that. In World of Warcraft, I'm so sorry for stuttering so much. In World of Warcraft, the game is written in C++, as far as I know. But they use Lua as part of like the scripting process. They use Lua in World of Warcraft, but it's not like the baseline core language that the game runs on. And I think when people say programming language, they typically mean like compiled source code, whereas Lua is like not compiled, it runs through an interpreter. And I'd say that that's kind of like a good distinction. Like Python is kind of a scripting language because it's run through some program. But really, I would still consider Lua a programming language because you program logic with it. There's a distinction between like HTML and JavaScript, for example. JavaScript is a programming language because it has logic involved. HTML is not a programming language. It is a markup language. In fact, it's in the name. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So it's not a programming language. It is a markup language. But JavaScript is a programming language because you're actually programming some logic into the website. CSS is another website thing. It's cascading style sheet. CSS is slowly becoming a scripting language. Really? Actually, you know, I have been hearing more about that, where you can add some like custom functionality. And I think I even have that in some of my sites where they have like tweens. You can have tweens on different values and stuff. Python is ran through C. That makes sense. Is that the Python exe is an executable that interprets all of the Python code. That's kind of the impression that I get. What keyboard do I have? The keyboard I have is it's a mechanical keyboard, and it's from Amazon. It's nothing fancy. It's a mechanical keyboard. It uses brown switches, which I think are the like in-between switches. But I really like it. I still use this keyboard like every day. It's my favorite. The only thing I dislike about it is that the battery dies once every like 2 weeks, and it'll happen while I'm typing. So I'll be typing something, and then suddenly it'll just like stop working, and then I'll freak out because I think that I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Someone made their website all 3D using pure HTML and CSS. That sounds very cool. I don't even know how that's possible. Well, I know how that's possible. Is that like you can render 3D objects by just having different planes at different angles. 3D effects is all just like illusions with different polygons and stuff. It's more compiled versus interpreted than programming versus scripting. That's the impression that I get too. And really, when I hear scripting, that implies to me that it's just running a one-off logical thing. Whereas like a program is an application that's multifaceted and you interact with it in multiple ways. I think of it as a program has multiple uses, whereas a script is just like a thing that runs and does one thing. Or does multiple things. It's just pre-programmed to do one thing. Bash is a better example of a scripting language. Yeah, I'm with you. Or like the PowerShell scripting. So Lua is a human-oriented language, and it is combined with a machine-oriented language. Like, the scripting part is more intuitive. Every programming language looks kind of similar to Lua. I understand that Lua has some pieces to it that seem more approachable, like if, then, else, and this stuff feels like it's more human readable. But C++, I promise, is not that much different. C++ would look like if GameMap.dark is equal to true, and then you would use curly braces instead, love.graphics.setColor. It's not that much different. So in terms of like human readability, I don't think this is that much more human readable compared to this. It is basically the same thing. There are some niceties and like conveniences that modern languages have over like old school C++ or something like that, but in terms of readability, all languages are pretty readable. Even C, I'd say, is pretty readable. It's not like assembly. Like, assembly is not human readable. It's not really any part of that. Because if a human is going to interact with a programming language, it needs to be readable. I hope that's what we were kind of talking about. I love Lua. Pretty much every type is just a table. Yeah, exactly. Tables are so flexible, and you can use them in so many unique ways that it just, like, I come up with really creative solutions to weird problems using tables. It's really fun. You can also remove the is equal to true. Yeah, I assumed you could. It's been a while since I used C++, because I haven't really needed to for at least 8 years. I think that's the last time I used C++. Weekly assembly slander. Assembly slander. But yeah, like this format where you can say like, if GameMap.dark, this is just a check to see if this is true or if that value exists. Actually, this equates to is not equal to nil. That's what this actually equates to in Lua. I think in C++ though, since it has strong typing, if you said if GameMap.dark, I assume that this would need to be a Boolean in order to calculate to true. No programming language is human readable before you learn it. I suppose that's true. I suppose that is true. How much are you planning to lean on crafting indestructible terrain objects? Not much. The only amount of that is just like decoration objects. There's definitely not gonna be crafting. I don't want anything complicated like that in the game. Oh my gosh, this is so slow. But if I go over to town, do I even have the boxes set out? So there's some destructible objects. I haven't been decorating them too much, but like these logs are destructible. That's an example of them. I got rid of all the boxes. I need to put them all back. But yeah, there's going to be destructible objects around in like boxes that have gold in them and stuff. I do have plans to put that in. Also, I'm going to get rid of the dots. The dots are kind of annoying. There we go. When I first tried Lua, I always wrote none instead of nil accidentally because I used Python. Yeah, it's hard to get used to some of the syntax changes between each of the different languages. Because I always say that like once you learn one language, learning another one is pretty easy because they are pretty similar. But at the same time, there are differences, and it's easy to forget about the like small quirks and differences between each language because they all use different wording. They all use slightly different things. It is hard to get used to once in a while. I still find it so amazing you are doing all this in love. Downloaded the demo the other day and it feels really clean and fun. Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I would say overall it was a challenge to get it to the point where it feels nice and clean. But now I'm doing another pass through of the game where I'm trying to make it even more clean. Because the demo that's on Steam right now, I really do like it. I think that it has a lot of good aspects to it. But the parts that I don't think are clean are the world design, the flow of events. Some of the like core mechanics feel a little bit sloppy, and cleaning up those core fundamental things is a challenging and slow process that I've been kind of struggling with, I'll admit. But I really do like where the game is at currently. I am really excited to get this new Steam demo at the door because I think people are going to like it a lot. The changes are nice. And the game is fun to play, and I'm really excited about where the code is at. That's been the main thing I've been focusing on, is that the code just has so much work in order to get it to the point where I can commit to a long-term project, because I want this game to be good, and I want it to like really feel complete. And getting to a complete state is tough when the code itself is built on like a shaky foundation. Building out content when the code itself is hard to work with, man, it's just a nightmare. Biggest foot gun in Lua is one base indexing. Yeah, I get that. I understand why people dislike that, and I'll agree that when I started using Lua, that was a something I wasn't too fond of. But having worked with Lua all these years, I can say with confidence that I'm fully used to it now, and also I think I like it more. I think that I have actually switched over to one-based indexing being the superior way of coding, just because things are ordered in that way. But you know, there's always going to be exceptions. There are places in my code where I have off by one errors because of the one indexing thing. There are places in my C++ code where I have off by one errors because of the zero indexing. The indexing starting at 1 versus 0 is always going to need to be a consideration. However, in Lua, since it starts at 1, I actually like it. I'm actually a fan of the one-based indexing. But I'm curious why mods and not just allow people to create objects in the game. Oh, well, I mean, I'm going to add mods, but crafting as a mechanic, that implies that crafting is baked into the gameplay to the point where I'm designing levels around crafting being there, because that's the consideration. This game isn't just a sandbox where a bunch of stuff can happen. This game is a game with events and things, and I want it to be balanced. So I can't really just put crafting and put a bunch of stuff in. This isn't that kind of game. I want things to be organized, and if there was crafting, it would need to be really thought through in the grand scheme of the game's like world. Where does it fit into the gameplay, and how does it progress like the flow of events? I love my game. I can't stick to any scripting language. I tried Lua, C#. Lua was the language I loved, but can't find much tutorials. I'm kind of new at scripting. Would you help me? The only solution is just to do it all the time. I understand that getting into scripting and coding is really, really tricky. But my advice is the same, where it's to keep it really simple at first. If you really feel like it's overwhelming and too much at first, stick to making very simple scripts. Make sure that you do it from scratch. And I know that there's not very many tutorials, but yeah, I wish I had better advice for like getting through that phase of learning. It helps when you have some goal that you're trying to achieve, like a game. I love telling people to make Pong as their first game, because even if you don't know how to code, making Pong forces you to learn the fundamentals, because you need to code a little bit in order to make Pong. So I would say, if you want to learn coding, have some project that you want to make and then start working on it. But make sure that project is simple and easy. If that project with Lua, like you could make a script that organizes your files, or gives you a list of all your files, or it could be a little game like Pong, or it could be a Roblox game, because Roblox has Lua scripting baked into it. Try to find something that will ease you into the process, because I agree, it's overwhelming at first. There's a lot that goes into it. Allfather, thank you again for the donation. For the end of stream, I'll probably talk more about the game idea later on, if you're down. Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm always on the Discord server, so feel free to make any posts there. Tunic Overworld MP3, good song name. Oh, is that what it says? Whoops. Whoops. Let me check that. I could have sworn that I put titles on every single song, but maybe the metadata didn't get set properly. Yeah, it didn't get set. Look. So they all have title metadata, but this one down here, the Tunic Overworld, does not. So let me set that real quick. I think I can set that directly in Windows properties. Oh, I can't. Oh, I probably can't because it's being streamed right now. I'll do that later. But hopefully I don't forget. Otherwise it'll say Tunic Overworld again. If I start to code Pong, where should I start? I just literally search tutorials for things I want to make, and always end up with nothing. If you want to code Pong, you need to think about the individual pieces that are required to make Pong. And you need to have a game framework or an engine. Choose any engine, any game framework. If you're using Lua, then you would probably use Love2D, or you can use Roblox. That also works too. It doesn't matter. Choose any framework or game engine and take it one tiny little step at a time. Think about what goes into making Pong. You have, the first step is to have a big empty screen. Just a big empty screen. Once you can make a game that's just a big empty screen, now you need to make the paddle. It's just a rectangle. Try to draw a rectangle on the screen. That's the next step. Be prepared to spend months? Yeah. Is that it's not going to be easy. Is that it sounds easy to draw a rectangle on the screen, but it's not easy because you don't know how to do it. Drawing a rectangle on the screen and making it move left and right, that's easy when you know how to do it. But when you don't know how to do it, it's hard because you don't know how to do it. So you have to take it one step at a time. You have to ask yourself, how do I just create a window? How do I draw a rectangle in my Love2D window? And then you look it up. The ball is the hardest part. The ball is the hardest part because it moves and it has collision. It bounces. And you have to account for that. It is tricky. It is tough. Can you tell me how to make code cleaner? Because my code looks like a nightmare for CPU. Yeah, I mean, there's two types of clean code. There's code that's clean and readable, and then there's code that's clean and efficient. Because code can be readable, but it might not be efficient. It might be doing a bunch of extra loops or extra like calls to stuff that's not necessary. In that case, the code isn't clean. But if you organize your code to be all on one single line, which by the way, Lua is a programming language that you can have everything on one single line. There's a Lua file called 30log on GitHub. So this file, 30log.lua, it's a really old Lua file that people used to use. I don't know if they use it anymore, but this is a big Lua file. And what's funny about it is that it's all on one line. Like look how long these lines are. This line right here. It's a big, long, ugly line. But this is perfectly valid Lua code. It's also very efficient. Having all this code on one single line, that's very efficient code. And in terms of like performance, this code is perfectly performant. Very, very good performant code. But this code is not readable. This is like the least readable code ever. It's all on one single line, and it's really awkward to work with because it's so like squished down vertically. But the reason it's called 30log, 30 lines of goodness. 30 lines of goodness. This file is 30, I guess it's 31 lines. But their whole goal was to make it as compact as possible. But when they did that, it made the file like not readable at all because it's all squished. But it's efficient. So I would say it's a balance. There's an opposite though. The opposite of 30 lines of goodness is if they stretch this out into like 3,000 lines of goodness. You could make it very readable, but then very big. And is that good? Which is better? Somewhere in between is the answer. Is that you don't want your game, or you don't want your files to look like this, because it's way too squished, too far. But you don't want your code to be like so tall and so separated. You don't want all your code files to be 3,000 lines long, just for the sake of readability. Because the longer the file, it probably is going to be more readable, but it is also going to be bigger and harder to navigate. There's always that balance. In Lua is and or instead of and. Yes, exactly. That's kind of like an attempt to make it a little bit more readable, is that you use ands and thens instead of like curly braces and, code speak stuff. Anything that is readable is infinitely better. In general, yes, I agree. But also, there's a balance between readable and overwhelming. Because I have files in this... I have files in new UI. This file here is very readable because everything just goes from top to bottom. If the ID of the button is main new game, do this. If it's this, then do this. It's all very readable, but it's huge. This file is 3,000 lines long, 2,900 lines long, and even though it's readable, it's really easy to read this file. Anyone could. If the ID is equal to this ID, then we're going to set the button class to this, we're going to set the text of the button to this, and we're going to set the width of the button to this. Very readable statements here, but it's not efficient. It's just copy and pasting all these different if statements and doing the exact same thing in so many different places. It's ridiculous. This is so ridiculous how spread out and inefficient it is. But it is readable. It is very easy to read. But you could argue that it's not readable because 3,000 lines, that's so many lines that it's hard to figure out where you even need to read. No else's? Yeah, exactly. Is that this code is old and bad. Like, I could squish this down and make it way more efficient. Really, I shouldn't have to worry about having to, like, say text equals this. I should just be able to pass this as a parameter. Or width is tied to the sprite, or it automatically sizes based on how much text is there. There's so many ways I could make this more efficient and better, but that's just part of the process. I do make my code better in lots of files, but this is one that desperately needs a facelift. Is it possible to make a story RPG in Left2D? Yeah, totally. I mean, I would say that I'm making one. I use the Julia programming language. I'm not familiar with that. That's overwhelming. Yeah, I'd say so. Some inefficiencies are negligible. I'd say I agree with that, where if you focus too much on making things perfect, then you're not going to actually make progress. And on that note, I think I'm going to call it quits for today. We've reached the 2-hour mark, and I'm ready to go get my Mickey D's, my McDonald's. What's the purpose of this code? This is all the UI code in my game, so it's all the different buttons. But on that note, I'm done. I'm ready to call it quits. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, Krish, Destin. Let's see. Sorry, I don't know how to read that name. You've been very active. Jill, Adele, Allfather, Krish, Butteriffy, Blaz, Adele, Penguin, Wolf, Future 34. Thank you so much for being here. I will be back next week for yet another Moonshire Monday. Saba, Dale, Rescue Squad, Wazoo. Bye, everyone. Thank you.